How old is Thor turning?
I have no idea.
I like that.
I don't believe in the man-made construct of time. I think he's in his 30s or something. But he's got this old fisherman's beard now.
Really?
Yeah. He's been doing the quarantine beard.
Very Viking of him.
Mm-hmm. And his beard, your beard looked like fucking trash. But his beard,
What?
he has this giant, he looks like an old fisherman. It's this giant, and it's red.
Yeah.
It's like a red.
Really? Okay.
Because his head on his hair is probably brown, but it has a reddish sort of tint kind of thing. But the beard is he looks like that dude from Game of Thrones, though.
Yeah.
What's that guy's name?
Giant Spain. Something.
Giant Spain.
Yeah, he was in love with Brianna of Tarth. I really hope they'd get together.
Wasn't it when he was a baby, he started sucking on a giant's titty milk, and it caused
that
him.
Is the story that he said.
It caused him to grow big and strong. I was I want some giant titty milk.
Dude, where can I get that?
I want giant titty milk.
Yeah, I've been just drinking Cambodian this whole time, and it clearly isn't working.
Podcasting live from the Mirror, shut down due to coronavirus. This is Bar Business, the podcast that's also a drinking game.
Welcome, guys. Now, as a drinking game, it does have some rules, so let's quickly just go through those. The first rule is when we drink, you drink.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. The second rule is if someone brings up the news or says COVID, they have to drink.
Right. And the third and final rule, just to keep things going along, is if either of us starts to ramble, we will cut each other off, and then it's a social.
Yes.
Cheers one more time.
Cheers again. Looking forward to this. So, drink of the week, what do we got?
So we actually are just drinking whiskey on the rocks. The previous weeks we've done cocktails. We decided to get a little more basic with it, just sort of start at the fundamentals. Whiskey is a commonly misunderstood spirit. It's one of our favorites. And just to give a quick rundown, whiskey is distilled from beer. That's what it is. It is distilled beer in a purified form, higher alcohol content. To distill something is to evaporate the alcohol out of it, capture it, put it in a pot. It's stronger that way, right? So whatever you make the beer out of also influences what the whiskey is. American whiskeys tend to go between bourbon and rye. Bourbon is mostly corn. Rye is mostly rye. Now, if you go to Scotland, it's mostly barley. If you go to Canada, it's rye. There's a bunch of different countries that do it. You might have seen it spelled whiskey with an E or without an E. Common mnemonic. If the country name has an E in it, they put the E in whiskey. If it doesn't, they don't.
Yeah, a couple things about whiskey. Whiskey was one of the first things that when I learned about it, I became interested in alcohol. And the first thing, Jeff is the smart one, and I'm the sort of more plain speaking person.
I thought I was the handsome one.
You're that too. So what I learned about whiskey that was really interesting to me is that all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
Yes.
And that fundamental kind of fact really influenced me to say, I want to learn more about this. So whiskey is the distillation process. It's like saying vodka. It's like saying gin. Mm-hmm. But each country, Scotland, Ireland, Canada, and America, have different styles that they use. And not only different styles, but different inputs. And one of the big things that makes bourbon unique is that it must be 51% corn.
Right.
And when the early American settlers came here, they found an abundance of corn, which does not grow in Europe. So the mash in Ireland and Scotland, and a lot of times Canada as well, is primarily wheat and barley. Mm-hmm. So that really influences the taste, making bourbon sort of sweeter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What else about bourbon? Or whiskey?
So there's a common misconception that bourbon has to be made in Kentucky. It is actually not true. There are a few rules that the government recognizes about being bourbon. First and foremost, as you said, it has to be 51% corn or more based on what they call the mash. And that's just the grains that you throw in with some yeast, and the yeast then turns the sugar from the grains into alcohol. And as long as it's 51% corn, and then also a few other rules, it has to be in certain American oak. The oak can't have been used before in the barrels. It has to be at least 2 years aged. Really, there's a 2 and a 4 mark for...
Let me jump in on something there because...
I think you just cut me off, and I think that's a social.
That's a social. gonna have to stop you there, Jeff. Not stop you, but just I wanted to add something about that barrel. That's another interesting point in my mind. So bourbon is aged in new American oak.
Right.
So they have dense forests in Kentucky and Tennessee, along with a lot of corn. So they use those inputs. Now in Scotland, a lot of people say they don't like Scotch because it's smoky, has a lot of flavor. The flavor, the color, all of that in whiskey comes from aging in the barrel. So bourbon is aged in new barrels, and if you look at like Maker's Mark, which is thought of as a higher end whiskey, it's only aged for 8 years. But then when you're at like a Scotch bar, they're talking about like, oh, this is a 12-year, this is an 18, this is a 30-year Scotch even. And one of the reasons why that's more important and why Scotch is more expensive is because Kentucky gets very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. So these new barrels are constantly expanding and contracting and imparting the flavors of that like wood and vanilla into the product, into the juice. Yeah. But then in Scotland, it's basically cold and raining at all times.
I've been there. I can convert.
I'm from there. McClelland is a Scottish name, but so it takes longer, and a lot of times in Scotland, they will buy used American bourbon barrels and then get them to Scotland, and then they'll char them. So they'll like set a fire using what's known as peat, which is a lot of times the forest floor. I mean, they'll like dig up sediment of leaves and like dead fruit and like animals and like all the stuff that's been decomposing. They'll dig it up, they'll put it on a fire, and they'll smoke the barrel.
So that's actually, we should reshoot this, because that's incorrect.
I mean, say it. That's all right.
Yeah. So the peat is actually used to dry the barley after it's been germinated with water and starts to sprout. They generally will use just like a blowtorch to do the inside of the thing.
I don't know. I don't know if that's all. I don't know if that's true.
I do know that it's true.
I've been to the distilleries.
Yeah. But that's still not where the flavor is coming from. The flavor, the parts per million of smoke as it's measured, is a complete function of how the germinated barley is actually turned into malt. And there's these smokehouses where they do is they suspend a screen across these beams, and then they put peat, which is, as you said, this sort of biomass that's collected from the bogs. And then it slowly smokes the grain, and that's unique because the rest of the world, what they do is they
so it's smoking the grain.
It's smoking the grain,
and
not the barrel.
The grain before it's turned into the mash.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So then what happens?
And then you the same thing as you would do with any other grain. The grain is then steeped in water, and the water will pull out the carbohydrates that are in the grain, and then the yeast will consume those carbohydrates and produce carbon dioxide and ethyl alcohol as the byproducts. And so that is essentially how you get beer. And then if you can,
and that's the distiller's beer.
Yes.
So then you said earlier that whiskey is distilled beer. So distillation, as I understand it, and Jeff can correct me because he is an expert in all of these things, but water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and alcohol boils at 168 degrees. So if you have this mash that you've just described and you've done all the steps, then if you keep your fire above 168 degrees and below 212, the alcohol steams off
at a far higher rate than the water.
At a far higher rate, and then it evaporates into a tube that puts it into another. What's it called?
So the tube is, they call it a condensing coil, and the
not
tube
the coil,
is, the collection vat.
The collection vat. So then the water is remaining, and the alcohol is boiling off. Right. And then if you see something that's like 5 times distilled, that means they've done that 5 times and then it's more of a.
Yeah, and if there's any like salts or anything dissolved in that liquid, when you boil it off, those things don't evaporate, so they get left behind. So it gets purified each time you do that.
Yeah. And what's that called? The white dog?
Oh, if it comes straight off the line the first time, I think that white lightning, I think they call it.
In Kentucky, they call it. I was just in Kentucky on a distiller tour, and they called it the white dog. So
that may also be true.
That's the like 91% like straight lightning before they've added water and then aged it.
I think that even at the best like chem lab distilleries doing all that chemistry is capable of, The most pure you can really get is like 96 and 97%.
Wait, so actually, I'm interested in this. You get the white dog, which is that 90 something percent, and then you're diluting it to 40 or 45 or whatever percent alcohol before you bottle it. Are you aging it before or after you dilute it?
Oh, so that's an interesting question. It depends a little bit on the spirit, but so for whiskey and bourbon in particular, going on camera here and I don't remember the exact number.
Oh, now you don't remember.
But
shit.
But I believe it's 153. I'm going to go on a limit. 153.6 is the proof that you can put it into the barrel at. But if it goes anything higher than that, watch me be totally wrong. But it's somewhere in that general.
What, like combust?
No, you're just no longer allowed to call it bourbon. You have to have some of the characteristics. So if you over purify, then you can't call it bourbon.
Got it.
All right. So should we talk about what we did this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So just keep it short and simple. To anyone here who has been to the Mirror, where we currently are, or to the pop-up bar that we were running, or our new projects, we've decided that we're just going to go ahead and, for the good of the company, for the good of our staff, for the good of everything, wait it out. We're going to wait till there's a treatment or a vaccine. We shut everything down.
Yeah, so let me give you guys all a little bit of backstory on all this. So we did the Beach Bar pop-up, and it's been great, and we've got these 2 bars in D.C. We've got other stuff in other places, but certainly D.C. is, unfortunately, I hate to even say this, but I don't think it's ready.
No, I think you're right.
We did the pop-up, and our friends and family, which is what we sort of call your circle, definitely showed up. I think people had
big ups. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And I think that people had fun, and it was a really good release, and we got to get out there.
Yeah.
But the office buildings are still empty.
Right.
People are not doing weekend birthday parties. And that's really the lifeblood of the bar business.
Yeah.
When your friends and family come in, that's great, but you need happy hour, you need weekend events.
Right.
And people just aren't, rightly so, are not planning or hosting or attending events right now.
Yeah.
So the idea that we had is, let's take the summer, let's take a little break and follow the guidelines and see what happens in the fall.
Well, that actually leads us. I think we buried the lead here. I think this is going to be our season finale, right?
This is the season finale.
Yeah, so you heard it here first. This part of the episode.
I was going to bring that up in last call, but yeah, this is our. So we did a little 4-episode season. But anyway, back to what we did this week. So the point is that we love you guys.
Yes.
I think doing the pop-up was a great learning experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we had opened the Mirror, or tried to open the Mirror, or tried to open our other thing, and it's like, that's our place, that's a definite, line in the sand, we are going to reopen. But the pop-up gave us the opportunity to do 3 or 4 weeks at a friend's bar, and as a pop-up with no guarantee that it's going to be forever. And we learned a lot of things, and we learned that a lot of the staff isn't ready to come back.
Yep.
We learned that the people in the offices aren't there.
Yeah. And we learned that also when people have a few drinks in them, the guidelines become blurry.
True.
True. So we just
and so at the end of the night, you've got all these guidelines which we try to follow, and then people are at a bar and they kind of it's like force of habit.
Right. Absolutely.
You're used to talking to somebody that's sitting next to you. You're used to going up. You're used to standing. You're used to moving around.
Right.
And then so it would be a choice between either like hiring a bunch of security to police people that are standing up, which is not what we're about, or
allowing people to then become more at risk, which we don't want to be participating in.
We don't want to participate in that. We don't want to hurt the staff. And also DC right now is like there's no one here.
Right.
And we had a staff member get mugged.
Yes, we did this past weekend.
And that's something that happens actually more often.
He is okay. He is physically okay.
He wasn't injured.
We were going to be able to replace his money, but it's.
Yeah, but that's something this being in the bar business as long as I have, I just want to shout out to some of our like friends that are, maybe younger or naive, or maybe it doesn't matter who they are. I have seen or heard about more people being mugged over the years, leaving bars late at night.
Oh, yes.
And the staff, especially because like a lot of servers and bartenders have cash on them, and people know this. And like, I remember at one lounge, there was a string of armed robberies in Adams Morgan and even down in DuPont where we were. And I mean, I'm not going to shout anyone out, but I can think of more than 10 people that I know that have been, mugged, robbed, assaulted, leaving bars late at night. So if you're alone, if you're maybe someone that could be a target, like Jeff and I are kind of like tall guys, like people don't want to target us as much. But if you're like maybe whoever you are, get an Uber.
Yes.
Get home safe. Don't think that it couldn't happen to you, because that stuff does happen.
Oh, yes. If you also bring a change of shirt, like don't wear your work uniform home if you can avoid it, things like that.
Yeah, and it's work. Yeah, I mean it's our staff, and it's also customers.
Yeah.
I mean it's people leaving bars late at night.
No, you're right. Just be careful in general. The world is crazy right now.
All right, so we're gonna not participate in the staged reopening. It just doesn't make sense financially, because you can only use outdoor space. You have to be distanced, but you're still paying all the same expenses.
Right.
So we're going to take the rest of the summer off.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to come back in September,
Yep.
and hopefully we'll be in a better place. But that's what we did this week.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to frequently asked questions. It's a segment that we've done every week so far.
I love frequently asked questions.
Yeah. So my frequently asked question is that I get people who come in a lot of times and they ask me if I consider myself a mixologist. And that is a word that seems to have come into fashion in the last, 10, 15 years. And no disrespect to anyone who likes to consider themselves as such, but personally my visceral reaction is that's not a word. I know that it's been printed before, and so, language is mutable, but it's not a word to me. I'm a bartender. I like to make drinks, and some of those drinks might be relatively complicated. But I'm here to tend a bar and to serve you a cocktail and, facilitate you having a good time.
It always reminds me of, sorry to jump in, it always reminds me of Half Baked,
Mm-hmm.
when Dave Chappelle said he was a custodian of the janitorial arts. It's like, you're a bartender, man. And being a bartender is cool.
I am proud of it. It almost seems like you're ashamed to be a bartender. And that is, I think, the part that needles me a little bit is like, why do you need to create a new name for it? Why isn't bartender enough? I think being a bartender is great.
And it's just like mixologist, it just is not. And I have some friends, and I've spent some time overseas and stuff, and like not in places that are not America, mm-hmm. where there's no tipping. Mm-hmm. Like being a bartender actually does kind of suck, and that's why you don't get good drinks.
Right.
Like if you're paying someone $12 an hour, they don't care. But with a bartender, and especially in a place like New York or DC, you can walk with $500-600 a night or more. Yes. If you're giving people amazing service. Mm-hmm. If you're making fantastic drinks, if you are have regulars that come and see you because they know you'll take care of them. It's a great job. You make 6 figures bartending. Nice. And the idea that you have to come up with a new name, I think is just fucking stupid. Yeah. So, do you want anything more on mixologist?
No, I think that, again, no disrespect to my friends who have donned that moniker. But, those are my feelings.
Yeah, it's not a real word. Don't call people mixologists, ever. My frequently asked question, it's more to go as an owner, when people will come in, mm-hmm. With like a resume to look for a job, and they will tout that they went to bartending school. They'll be like, I went to bartending school. And much like mixology, bartending school is not real.
Right, yes.
It's a litany of things. The first thing is that it's so expensive to obtain a liquor license that these schools don't have one. Mm. So oftentimes, you're just mixing colored water.
Yes.
And
no, all of the time.
All of the time, you're mixing colored water, and you're not tasting anything, and you're not smelling anything, and also it's just, I think the methods that they teach are in a lot of ways antiquated. Yes. They'll teach you how to count when using measuring cups is really what we
It's
do in the
just
craft
better.
scene. It's just better. The reason why McDonald's is so successful is the consistency. You can get a Big Mac here or in London or in Japan. It's going to hopefully taste pretty close to the same. And that's what these craft cocktails are. You want the consistency.
Right.
And bartending schools just don't teach that.
Well, they also tend to have been started in a previous era. So they're going to teach a lot of drinks that are popular in the 90s and the 80s, but are
Right.
not what people are drinking now.
Like
And,
apple martinis.
yes, B52s. They're
Long Island iced
that
teas.
I never get asked to make. And I understand that there's a broad segment that probably does drink those, but they're not catering to the craft segment. And that's really what we're...
Fun fact, Ovechkin's favorite drink is the B-52. He used to come in to One Lounge
Sure.
a lot and hang out, and he's a cool guy, but he'd always want B-52s, and it was just mildly hilarious.
That's actually the last time I've ever made a B-52.
It was for Ovi? Shit, okay.
Which also, I'm going to go on record to the conspiracy theory. COVID was invented to stop Ovi from overtaking Gretzky in the scoring title.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna let you have that one. All right, you got some tricks of the trade?
Yeah. So my trick of the trade is
What is it?
wait, we just jumped a whole bunch of shit.
Did we?
Yeah, I thought we were going from mixologist to
What's good? What's good? What does that mean? Yeah, no. So the trick of the trade that we have for you, Jeff, is what would you get if you were me? Versus what do you recommend?
I have now deciphered my own shorthand that I thought I would remember and sadly didn't. Okay, yeah. So this is a tip for ordering when you go to a bar. So I have the last decade of my life, give or take, worked in places that have a cocktail list of some sort. And so if you go in and you're trying to pick a drink, it can be daunting. And so you obviously might lean towards having some guidance. But some people don't understand. You got to give a little help on the guidance. If you walk into a bar and you say, "What would you get if you were me?" I don't know you. I don't know your name. I don't know your background. I don't know your trauma. I don't know what your history is, and I don't know how to help you guide. But if you walk up to me and say, "Hey, I like whiskey drinks, and I prefer them sort of boozy and bitter," I got you, bro. I got you. Or you walk up and you say, "I like vodka, and I like it fruity, and I want it in a martini glass, and I'd like it to be bubbly." I can make that happen too.
That sounds delicious, actually.
Yeah, I would drink both of those with reckless abandon. But you have to give me some starting point.
So, and I think that's a really great perspective from the bar side, but also like from the eating at restaurant side as a customer and as a person who's waited tables, even at the beach bar like a couple weeks ago. The question, what would you get if you were me, is you don't know your trauma. So it's like, oh, the lamb chops are fantastic. Oh, I don't eat lamb. Like, that tastes weird. Or like, oh, like I love the scallops. Oh, I'm allergic to seafood. So I don't fucking know. But then the question that you can ask is, what do you recommend?
Yes.
Because as a server, you are trying to avoid your angry chef that we talked about last week, and you work for tips.
Yeah.
So if the people like what they eat, they're likely to tip you more than if it's terrible.
Yes.
So they're going to say, "Oh, okay, on the appetizer list, I like the wings. The wedge salad's fantastic, and the porcini rubbed ribeye is my favorite entree. If you're looking for seafood, the Chilean sea bass is great."
Yeah.
Because they're going to tell you what comes out of the kitchen well.
Yes.
Because they work in that kitchen.
Right.
They know. They know the crab cakes are
Trust
trash.
the professionals.
They know the crab cakes are trash. There's too much filler, so they're not going to recommend those.
Too much filler in a crab cake should be illegal.
Ruins
I'm pushing for that as a constitutional amendment.
Ruins it. Okay, my trick of the trade, this is actually something that, yeah. So, be cool if your friend is not in the industry.
Oh, yes.
So, I have a lot of friends. I actually worked hard to to like create relationships with people that are not in the bar business, because I don't want to be king of my own castle, and I don't want to be, disgruntled and angry at the world, So, I have buddies that are in different fields, and we go out to lunch, and we go out to dinner, and we go to the beach and stuff like that. And Yeah, like, there'll be the guy, like, the server's at another table taking an order, and they're like, hey, could I get another, oh, can you fill my bottle of water with water instead of the glass because it's an app that I'm, like, maintaining? And they're like, oh, could I have the wedge salad, but no tomatoes, no walnuts? Instead of blue cheese, could I get ranch? And could you, like, sprinkle some cheddar on top of it? And it used to drive me mad.
Yeah.
Or like over the weekend, a buddy of mine was, we were supposed to be sitting and distancing, and he was dancing and going up to people, and I was like, it's like cringeworthy, but you just got to be cool, because if you're trying to lecture your friends, they're not going to be your friends for very long. Right. So recognize that they don't know what the fuck's going on, and live your life, bro.
I will tell you, as a service professional, if there is someone in the group who is self-aware of the situation and is just being cool, I'm not saying that you need to have like a huge amount of guilt for your friends, but like just be cool, and that will go up.
Oh, I always like leave an extra tip. Yeah, like I'm like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
like slide a 20.
That's my usual move. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? This is funny. This wasn't planned. So I was at Rehoboth Beach this weekend, and I was with a really great friend and a guy that I really like, but he does not know how to act in a restaurant at all. So we were at this they're just opening up. It's distancing. The server's got a mask on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's just like, whatever, I'm not going to go into it, but he's like ordering things one at a time. Mm. He's like getting something and they bring it back. And he's like, oh, can I also get a water with my tea and all this stuff? And so at the end of the meal, he paid. He was like, let me get this. And he paid. I didn't see how much he tipped, but I'm sure it was probably 20%. Right. But I folded up a 20 and just left it under the ketchup bottle for the server. I didn't say anything. So then we leave, and as soon as we get out to the beach, I immediately realized that I had forgotten this large iced tea that I had bought to go. So I'm like, shit, I run back in to get the iced tea. And the server was this like young girl I think she was like a Russian summer work program person. And the owner was sort of like a big mama type.
There seems to be a lot of that in the beach cities.
Yeah, seasonal. So the owner was like this kind of big mama type. So then I'm walking back to the table to get my iced tea, and I hear Big Mama telling the Russian exchange student that she saw the 20 I left, and he's like, that's how you work it, girl. You got to make those boys want you. And I was like, she had a mask on the whole time. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know what that means. Oy, oy, oy.
All right, so the next segment we have lined up is we're going to talk about horrible jobs that we've had.
Horrible jobs.
We can actually go, I think, for a few more podcasts before we exhaust this, but we're gonna.
I think it's a great segment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay, so I'm gonna lead with one that it was a horrible job in the sense of it didn't pay very well and the hours were terrible, but I actually love it and I made some lifelong friends there. And that's when I was 17 years old. I used to work the overnight shift at a Waffle House in Mandeville, Louisiana. And it was right at the north entrance to the Causeway, a 22-mile bridge that led straight into New Orleans. And I got to tell you, working from 9 to 7, or the average age...
9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yes.
Let the people know.
Oh, yes. No, the shift started at 9 p.m., where I and another 17-year-old were left, both of us being 17, with a 16-year-old line cook.
Oh, my God.
The three of us were left to our own devices.
It's a pirate crew.
To operate a business for 10 hours through the middle of the night. And in the summer of 2002, that is how we operated for a good 6 months. We had two 17-year-olds and a 16-year-old serving all the drunks exiting New Orleans.
Yeah, what was the crowd like?
Oh, my God. A lot of junkies, a lot of drug dealers.
Oh.
A lot of weird hippies. Sometimes we interacted with the morning crew. We didn't generally do it, but sometimes people didn't show up for shifts. Which happens. In fact, I'm going to take a slight, you can cut me off for rambling, except there was a woman that I used to work with who called out on my first night shift. And I had to be there and answer because there was no manager. She was half an hour late, and the manager had split at 9 o'clock. So again,
Right.
it is me and a
9
16-year-old.
exactly.
And this girl, I don't know. She seemed old at the time, but I was 17. She was probably 22. And she had a second job where she was a stripper, and she had given a lap dance to the regional manager. That is how she had gotten the waiting job at my Waffle House. And she had to call out of her shift, my first night shift, because she had just been diagnosed with genital herpes, and the doctor had given her a cream to rub on her groin area that made it too sore to put on pants.
So
she did not come in.
Jeff, I'm cutting you off. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, mine's actually not that much. It's actually similar. Oh my God. Well, that's disgusting. That's disgusting, Jeff. Jesus Christ, that's gross. Yeah, so my horrible job. So when I was like 18, 19, I was really rebelling hard. Like some things had happened in my family, and I was just like, fuck it. And I didn't go straight to college. I took a couple of years off to just like be a fucking rebel without a cause. And that was fine. So my parents were like, well, we're not giving you any money then. Not that they were before, but I was on my own. And that's really when I started delving into being a server. I was 18. And I'd been fired from several serving jobs because I was terrible at it. And so finally I went into an Outback Steakhouse on Route 1 in Alexandria, Virginia. I don't know if I've told you this story. So I went in and I had my little resume and I had my little, fucking whatever. And I asked for a serving job. So they hired me. But within a couple days, they realized that I was a terrible server and like just not even listening when they were talking to me. And they demoted me to dishwasher / barback. So now my job was in the kitchen, and it was like cleaning out the toilets, breaking down boxes in the back. Oh my God. Especially at a strip mall on Route 1, there's like rat. It's not what you want. Cleaning out the fryer stations, which we've talked about before, which is the worst job in America. And like doing all these terrible things. And I realized at that time, by witnessing what was going on in the kitchen, that I would never eat at an Outback Steakhouse again.
There's blooming onions, bro.
So, but I was also 18 and rebelling, so I'd probably like got real high or drunk the night before, and I like didn't show up one day, and they fired me.
Yeah.
But that was actually good, because 2 weeks later, my dad and my stepmom were having dinner there, and my stepmom was 9 months pregnant, and while eating dinner at Outback Steakhouse, her water broke on the floor of table 16. And had I still been working there, it would have been my job to clean it up.
Oh, Jesus. Cheers to that.
So, horrible jobs. This segment, I think, needs to come back in season 2.
It has legs.
It definitely does. The next segment it's a new one. It's tips if you want to one day own a bar.
The name of the bar, or the podcast, rather, is Bar Business. So we assume some of you are intrigued by that.
And it's interesting because right now, like, it feels like the world is ending. It feels like nothing's ever going to be the same again. And I am old and gray enough to know that it will be. We didn't think anything was going to be the same after 9/11. We didn't think anything was going to be the same after the 2008-9 crash. And it always is. And it is going to be again. Things are going to get better. So if you want to one day own a bar, now's actually a really great time to start thinking about ways to do that.
Yes. The first steps of planning right now is the perfect time.
And especially if you don't already own a bar, like we have bars, so we're like struggling. We're trying to get government like bailout money. We're deciding if we're going to reopen or not reopen. But if you don't yet own a bar and you've got like some cash in the bank and you've been getting unemployment, this is a great time. Right. And I don't necessarily think today, but start looking today.
Yes.
Because it takes 6 months to find these things, and
you can never be too prepared.
Never be too prepared, but also it also just takes time. And the thing is that So my tip of the week is, if you are a bar owner or someone who wants to own a bar, use a broker. And that sounds kind of selfish because I am a broker, and if anyone wants to talk or slide in my DMs, I'd be more than happy to chat about it with you. But the idea about using a broker is, if you are the tenant, meaning you're the person signing the lease and opening the business, the landlord pays the broker fee, so it's free to you. And the first time I opened one lounge, I didn't use a broker, made every mistake in the book. I see it every day, making every mistake in the book. So if you can get somebody like me or like whoever in your own town, do some research, they're going to help you and they're going to know all the tricks, and it's going to be free to you. Mm-hmm. So I would say, if you're thinking about it, even if you want to look on LoopNet, send the stuff that you find on LoopNet to your broker so he can vet it and make sure it's not a scam, because there's that shit going on all the time. Yeah. So, and the last piece that I'll say about this is, a lot of great places are closing. A lot of iconic places are closing. And, that's really sad. But if you're someone who wants to open an iconic place, there's going to be much more inventory out there when this is over than before it started. So if you want to own a bar, you can do it. I think it's really cool. We'll do some more tips. What do you have, Jeff?
Well, so my tip is actually something that's not totally related to us personally, but is related to our broader experience, both together and apart in the greater restaurant industry. And I think that we'll go into this deeper probably on a different episode, but the one right here is just talking about some of the things I've seen with partners that you can have. And I've worked at a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you and I have been partners in a couple of places, but we have both done a lot of things with a lot of other people. You've been a partner in a lot of things. I've been an employee of a bunch of different groups with a lot of different partners. And most of those people are great. And I am so happy for the path and the experience that I've had in this industry. But one of the things that I have noticed in different groups is that there's always the yappiest partner, right? There's someone who just always has some problems and has a lot of feedback to give, and it's usually the person with the smallest stake in the company. And I don't know why that is, but I just would advise people, as they're looking at partners, think about everyone's personality that you're involved with. Because there's some people who just want to give you money for a business transaction, and they hope that the percentage return is whatever it might be. Or they might care about the prestige of owning a great place with a great chef or a great head bartender or a manager or whatever it may be. And then there's some people who want to make sure that you put the special on that honors their girl's name, or the food item that their grandma really likes.
Oh, God.
Or whatever it might be. And if you let someone come in and buy 1% of your restaurant, they have a share. They have a legal right to a seat at the table, and they might say some really dumb shit.
That is such a great point. It kind of goes to me helping people open restaurants and stuff. I always tell them that. Yeah. You need money to open a business. And so a lot of times people will try to get investors. And in the beginning, you need money so bad that it's almost like you'll take anything. You're like, oh, you'll give me $10,000? Great. Yeah. But then once someone has given you their hard-earned money, they feel deserving of special treatment. And
you're obligated to listen to their opinions, no matter how terrible they are.
You're obligated in a way, but also there's so many ways to structure this. And a broker could help you with this, or a lawyer as well. It's another rule, always use a lawyer. But make sure you understand, let's say you go 33, 33, 33, and you're the restaurant guy, and then you get two people to give you money, and you're each a third. Well, now the money outvotes you.
Right.
So you're sitting there with a 33.3% interest in a company that you came out of your brain.
And I've worked at some of those restaurants, and they've all failed. It's terrible.
And then the money, when I say the money, the investors, the people that put up the money, now have a controlling interest in the company, and they can fire you. Yeah. Once you get into business, it's not about making drinks or cooking food. It's about contracts and leases and licenses and the government.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that even though your dream is to own a bar and to be the man, and that's great, you need to make sure that you have people on your side that are advising you that know what they're talking about as well.
Yeah. Protect yourself.
All right, man, it's the last call.
All right, so this is, as we said, the season finale. We love you guys. Can we do another social? Cheers.
Let's do a social. Cheers. Yeah, it's a season finale. We don't really know what that means. We wanted to do this during lockdown. We did 4 episodes. If you guys go back and watch all, I would watch them in a row actually if I was you. It's cool to see how it's gotten better.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a lot of really great feedback, and we've people have been so cool, and our friends and stuff have watched, and people have said, hey, this is something that could be, maybe a little bit more than it is right now. Whether we talk to someone that has a legit studio or whether we start kind of refining this stuff. So what we're going to do is we're taking a break from the bars to be safe and to make sure that we follow all the guidelines and keep everyone safe. And we're going to take a little break. It's not going to be long from the podcast.
Yeah.
And we're going to figure out a bunch of loose ends.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back strong. I think if you guys like this, share it, tell your friends, subscribe to it on YouTube. We like doing it, and we've heard so much good feedback, and the more views and the more comments we get, it's going to be easier to keep doing it.
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out and big ups to our producer, the intern. He is Liam. Ladies, you can't see him right now. He has a girlfriend, but should they not be together when this comes out, his BDE drip will quench your thirst, ladies.
Shots fired. Yeah, someone at the beach bar said that he looks like Harry Styles. So.
Oh yeah, but a more handsome Harry Styles.
And someone else said like Timothy Chalamet. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the guy's name, but
yeah.
He's handsome. He's tall. He has 3 first names. Everything that you need.
I've heard a more handsome Brad Pitt thrown around.
I haven't heard that. No, what? No.
All right, I was just trying to fucking throw some praise in our boy. All right.
Yeah, no, everyone's handsome, but he's got a different look. Anyway, yeah, it's good. All right.
He's very handsome though.
So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We love being here. We love talking to you, and we hope you love hearing what we have to say. Jeff, do you have a quote we can end on?
Yeah, I do. So we're going with Oscar Wilde to finish off this season because the man was one of the best drunks of all time. And he famously said, "Work is the curse of the drinking classes." See y'all next time.